Hadith 1. Narrated Abdullāh bin Umar. Umar bought a silk cloak from the market, took it to Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. Take it and adorn yourself with it during the Eid and when the delegations visit you. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, replied, This dress is for those who have no share in the hereafter. After a long period, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, sent to Umar a cloak of silk brocade. Umar came to Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, with the cloak and said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. You said that this dress was for those who had no share in the hereafter, yet you have sent me this cloak. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said to him, Sell it and fulfill your needs by it. Hadith 2. Narrated Aisha, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, came to my house while two girls were singing beside me the songs of Bu'ath, a story about the war between the two tribes of the Ansar, the Khazraj and the Aus, before Islam. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, lay down and turned his face to the other side. Then Abu Bakr came and spoke to me harshly saying, Musical instruments of Satan near the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him? Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, turned his face towards him and said, Leave them. When Abu Bakr became inattentive, I signaled to those girls to go out and they left. It was the day of Eid, and the black people were playing with shields and spears, so either I requested the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, or he asked me whether I would like to see the display. I replied in the affirmative. Then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, made me stand behind him and my cheek was touching his cheek, and he was saying, Carry on. O Bani Arfidah, till I got tired. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, asked me, Are you satisfied, is that sufficient for you? I replied in the affirmative and he told me to leave. Hadith 3. Narrated Al-Barā, I heard the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, delivering a khutbah saying, The first thing to be done on this day, first day of Eid-ul-Adha, is to pray, and after returning from the prayer, we slaughter our sacrifices, in the name of Allah, and whoever does so, he acted according to our Sunnah, traditions. Hadith 4. Narrated Aisha, Abu Bakr came to my house while two small Ansari girls were singing beside me the stories of the Ansar concerning the day of Bu'ath. And they were not singers. Abu Bakr said protestingly, Musical instruments of Satan in the house of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. It happened on the Eid day and Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, O Abu Bakr. There is an Eid for every nation and this is our Eid. Hadith 5. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, never proceeded, for the prayer, on the day of Eid-al-Fitr unless he had eaten some dates. Anas also narrated, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to eat odd number of dates. Hadith 6. Narrated Anas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Whoever slaughtered his sacrifice before the Eid prayer should slaughter again. A man stood up and said, This is the day on which one has desire for meat, and he mentioned something about his neighbors. It seemed that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, believed him. Then the same man added, I have a young she-goat which is dearer to me than the meat of 2 sheep. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, permitted him to slaughter it as a sacrifice. I do not know whether that permission was valid only for him or for others as well. Hadith 7. Narrated Al-Barā bin Azib, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, delivered the khutbah after offering the prayer on the day of Nahr and said, Whoever offers the prayer like us and slaughters like us, then his nusuk, sacrifice, will be accepted by Allah. And whoever slaughters his sacrifice before the Eid prayer, then he has not done the sacrifice. Abi Burda bin Niyar, the uncle of Al-Barā, said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. I have slaughtered my sheep before the Eid prayer, and I thought today as a day of eating and drinking, not alcoholic drinks, and I liked that my sheep should be the first to be slaughtered in my house. So I slaughtered my sheep and took my food before coming for the prayer. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, the sheep which you have slaughtered is just mutton, not a nusuk. He, Abu Burda, said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. I have a young she-goat which is dearer to me than 2 sheep. Will that be sufficient as a nusuk on my behalf? The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, yes, it will be sufficient for you, but it will not be sufficient, as a nusuk, for anyone else after you. Hadith 8. Narrated Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to proceed to the musalla on the days of Eid-al-Fitr and Eid-al-Adha. The first thing to begin with was the prayer, and after that he would stand in front of the people and the people would keep sitting in their rows. Then he would preach to them, advise them and give them orders, that is, khutbah. And after that, if he wished to send an army for an expedition, he would do so, or if he wanted to give an order, he would do so, and then depart. The people followed this tradition till I went out with Marwan, the governor of Medina, for the prayer of Eid al-Adha or Eid-al-Fitr. When we reached the musalla, there was a pulpit made by Kathir bin As-Salt. Marwan wanted to get up on that pulpit before the prayer. I got hold of his clothes but he pulled them and ascended the pulpit and delivered the khutbah before the prayer. I said to him, by Allah, you have changed the Prophet's tradition. He replied, O Abu Sa'id, gone is that which you know. I said, by Allah, what I know is better than what I do not know. Marwan said, people do not sit to listen to our khutbah after the prayer, so I delivered the khutbah before the prayer. Hadith 9. Narrated Abdullāh bin Umar, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, used to offer the prayer of Eid al-Adha and Eid-al-Fitr, and then deliver the khutbah after the prayer. Hadith 10. Narrated Ibn Jurayj, Atā said, Jabir bin Abdullah said, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, went out on the day of Eid-al-Fitr and offered the prayer before delivering the khutbah. Atā told me that during the early days of Ibn az-Zubayr, Ibn Abbas had sent a message to him telling him that the Adhan for the Eid prayer was never pronounced, in the lifetime of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and the khutbah used to be delivered after the prayer. Atā told me that Ibn Abbas and Jabir bin Abdullah had said, there was no Adhan for the prayer of Eid-al-Fitr and Eid-al-Adha. Atā said, I heard Jabir bin Abdullah saying, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, stood up and started with the prayer, and after it he delivered the khutbah. When the Prophet of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, finished the khutbah, he went to the women and preached to them, while he was leaning on Bilal's hand. Bilal was spreading his garment and the ladies were putting alms in it. I said to Atā, do you think it is incumbent upon an Imam to go to the women and preach to them after finishing the prayer and khutbah? Atā said, no doubt it is incumbent on Imams to do so, and why should they not do so? Hadith 11. Narrated Ibn Abbas, I offered the Eid prayer with Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman and all of them offered the prayer before delivering the khutbah. Hadith 12. Narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, Abu Bakr and Umar used to offer the 2 Eid prayers before delivering the khutbah. Hadith 13. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, offered a 2 rakat prayer on the day of Eid-al-Fitr, and he did not pray before or after it. Then he went towards women along with Bilal and ordered them to pay alms, and so they started giving their earrings and necklaces, in charity. Hadith 14. Narrated Al-Bara bin Azib, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, the first thing that we should do on this day of ours is to pray, and then return to slaughter the sacrifice. So anyone who does so, he acted according to our Sunnah, tradition, and whoever slaughtered the sacrifice before the prayer, it was just meat which he presented to his family and would not be considered as nusuk. A person from the Ansar named Abu Burda bin Niyar said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. I slaughtered the nusuk, before the prayer, but I have a young she-goat which is better than an older sheep. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, sacrifice it in lieu of the first, but it will not be sufficient, as a sacrifice, for anybody else after you. Hadith 15. Narrated Sa'id bin Jubayr, I was with Ibn Umar when a spear head pierced the sole of his foot and his foot stuck to the paddle of the saddle, and I got down and pulled his foot out, and that happened in Mina. Al-Hajjaj got the news and came to inquire about his health and said, Alas! If we could only know the man who wounded you. Ibn Umar said, You are the one who wounded me. Al-Hajjaj said, How is that? Ibn Umar said, You have allowed the arms to be carried on a day on which nobody used to carry them, and you allowed arms to be carried in the Haram even though it was not allowed before. Hadith 16. Narrated Sa'id bin Amr bin Sa'id bin Al-As, Al-Hajjaj went to Ibn Umar while I was present there. Al-Hajjaj asked Ibn Umar, How are you? Ibn Umar replied, I am all right. Al-Hajjaj asked, Who wounded you? Ibn Umar replied, The person who allowed arms to be carried on the day on which it was forbidden to carry them. He meant Al-Hajjaj. Hadith 17. Narrated Al-Bara, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, delivered the Khutba on the day of Nahr, Eid al-Adha, and said, The first thing we should do on this day of ours is to pray, and then return and slaughter our sacrifices. So anyone who does so he acted according to our Sunnah, and whoever slaughtered before the prayer then it was just meat that he offered to his family and would not be considered as a sacrifice in any way. My uncle Abu Burda bin Niyar got up and said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. I slaughtered the sacrifice before the prayer, but I have a young she-goat which is better than an older sheep. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Slaughter it in lieu of the first, and such a goat will not be considered as a sacrifice for anybody else after you. Hadith 18. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, No good deeds done on other days are superior to those done on these, first 10 days of Dhul-Hijjah. Then some companions of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Not even jihad? He replied, Not even jihad, except that of a man who does it by putting himself and his property in danger, for Allah's sake, and does not return with any of those things. Hadith 19. Narrated Muhammad bin Abi Bakr Thaqafi, while we were going from Mina to Arafat, I asked Anas bin Malik about Talbiyah, How did you use to say Talbiyah in the company of the Prophet? Anas said, People used to say Talbiyah and their saying was not objected to, and they used to say Takbir and that was not objected to either. Hadith 20. Narrated Atiyah, we used to be ordered to come out on the day of Eid, and even bring out the virgin girls from their houses and menstruating women, so that they might stand behind the men, and say Takbir along with them, and invoke Allah along with them, and hope for the blessings of that day and for purification from sins. Hadith 21. Narrated Ibn Umar, on the day of Eid-al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, a spear used to be planted in front of the Prophet, as a sutra for the prayer, and then he would pray. Hadith 22. Narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to proceed to the musalla and an anaza used to be carried before him and planted in the musalla in front of him, and he would pray facing it, as a sutra. Hadith 23. Narrated Muhammad, Atiyah said, Our Prophet ordered us to come out, on Eid day, with the mature girls and the virgins staying in seclusion. Hafsah narrated the above-mentioned hadith and added, the mature girls or virgins staying in seclusion, but the menstruating women had to keep away from the musalla. Hadith 24. Narrated Ibn Abbas, I, in my boyhood, went out with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, on the day of Eid-al-Fitr or Eid al-Adha. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, prayed and then delivered the khutbah, and then went towards the women, preached and advised them and ordered them to give alms. Hadith 25. Narrated Al-Bara, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, went towards al-Baqi, the graveyard at Medina, on the day of Eid al-Adha and offered a 2 rakat prayer of Eid al-Adha, and then faced us and said, on this day of ours, our first act of worship is the offering of prayer, and then we will return and slaughter the sacrifice, and whoever does this concords with our Sunnah. And whoever slaughtered his sacrifice before that is, before the prayer, then that was a thing which he prepared earlier for his family, and it would not be considered as a nusuk, sacrifice. A man stood up and said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. I slaughtered the animal before the prayer, but I have a young she-goat which is better than an older sheep. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to him, slaughter it. But a similar sacrifice will not be sufficient for anybody else after you. Hadith 26. Narrated Abdurrahman bin Abbas, Ibn Abbas was asked whether he had joined the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in the Eid prayer. He said, yes. And I could not have joined him had I not been young. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, came out, till he reached the mark which was near the house of Kathir bin As-Salt, offered the prayer, delivered the khutbah and then went towards the women. Bilal was accompanying him. He preached to them and advised them and ordered them to give alms. I saw the women putting their ornaments with their outstretched hands into Bilal's garment. Then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, along with Bilal, returned home. Hadith 27. Narrated Ibn Jurayj, Atā told me that he had heard Jabir bin Abdullāh saying, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, stood up to offer the prayer of the Eid-al-Fitr. He first offered the prayer and then delivered the khutbah. After finishing it he got down, from the pulpit, and went towards the women, and advised them while he was leaning on Bilal's hand. Bilal was spreading out his garment where the women were putting their alms. I asked Atā whether it was the zakat of Eid-al-Fitr. He said, no, it was just alms given at that time. Some lady put her finger ring and the others would do the same. I said to Atā, do you think that it is incumbent upon the Imam to give advice to the women, on Eid day? He said, no doubt, it is incumbent upon the Imams to do so, and why should they not do so? Hadith 28. Al-Hasan bin Muslim told me that Ibn Abbas had said, I joined the Prophet, Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman in the Eid-al-Fitr prayers. They used to offer the prayer before the khutbah, and then they used to deliver the khutbah afterwards. Once the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, came out, for the Eid prayer, as if I were just observing him waving to the people to sit down. He then, accompanied by Bilal, came crossing the rows till he reached the women. He recited the following verse, O Prophet! When the believing women come to you to take the oath of fealty to you. To the end of the verse, Surah 60, Ayah 12. After finishing the recitation, he said, O ladies! Are you fulfilling your covenant? None except one woman said, yes. Hassan did not know who was that woman. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, then give alms. Bilal spread his garment and said, keep on giving alms. Let my father and mother sacrifice their lives for you, ladies. So the ladies kept on putting their futks, big rings, and other kinds of rings in Bilal's garment. Abdur Razzaq said, futks is a big ring which used to be worn in the pre-Islamic period of ignorance. Hadith 29. Narrated Ayyub, Hafsah bint Sirin said, on Eid, we used to forbid our girls to go out for Eid prayer. A lady came and stayed at the palace of Bani Khalaf and I went to her. She said, the husband of my sister took part in 12 holy battles along with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and my sister was with her husband in 6 of them. My sister said that they used to nurse the sick and treat the wounded. Once she asked, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. If a woman has no veil, is there any harm if she does not come out, on Eid day? The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, her companion should let her share her veil with her, and the women should participate in the good deeds and in the religious gatherings of the believers. Hafsa added, when Umm came, I went to her and asked her, did you hear anything about so-and-so? Said, yes, let my father be sacrificed for the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And whenever she mentioned the name of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, she always used to say, let my father be sacrificed for him. He said, virgin mature girls staying often screened, or said, mature girls and virgins staying often screened. Ayyub is not sure as which was right, and menstruating women should come out, on the Eid day. But the menstruating women should keep away from the musalla. And all the women should participate in the good deeds and in the religious gatherings of the believers. Hafsa said, on that, I said to also those who are menstruating? Replied, yes. Do they not present themselves at Arafat and elsewhere? Hadith 30. Narrated we were ordered to go out, for Eid, and also to take along with us the menstruating women, mature girls and virgins staying in seclusion. Ibn Awn said, or mature virgins staying in seclusion. The menstruating women could present themselves at the religious gathering and invocation of Muslims, but should keep away from their musalla. Hadith 31. Narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to nahr or slaughter sacrifices at the musalla, on Eid al-Adha. Hadith 32. Narrated Al-Bara bin Azib, on the day of Nahr, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, delivered the khutbah after the Eid prayer and said, anyone who prayed like us and slaughtered the sacrifice like we did, then he acted according to our nusuk, tradition of sacrificing, and whoever slaughtered the sacrifice before the prayer, then that was just mutton, that is, not sacrifice. Abu Burda bin Niyar stood up and said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. By Allah, I slaughtered my sacrifice before I offered the Eid prayer, and thought that today was the day of eating and drinking non-alcoholic drinks, and so I made haste in slaughtering, and ate and also fed my family and neighbors. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, that was just mutton, not a sacrifice. Then Abu Burda said, I have a young she-goat and no doubt, it is better than 2 sheep. Will that be sufficient as a sacrifice for me? The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, replied, yes. But it will not be sufficient for anyone else, as a sacrifice, after you. Hadith 33. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, offered the prayer on the day of Nahr and then delivered the khutbah, and ordered that whoever had slaughtered his sacrifice before the prayer should repeat it, that is, should slaughter another sacrifice. Then a person from the Ansar stood up and said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. Because of my neighbors, he described them as being very needy or poor, I slaughtered before the prayer. I have a young she-goat which, in my opinion, is better than 2 sheep. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, gave him the permission for slaughtering it as a sacrifice. Hadith 34. Narrated Jundub, on the day of Nahr, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, offered the prayer and delivered the khutbah, and then slaughtered the sacrifice and said, anybody who slaughtered his sacrifice before the prayer should slaughter another animal in lieu of it, and the one who has not yet slaughtered should slaughter the sacrifice mentioning Allah's name on it. Hadith 35. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullāh, on the day of Eid, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used to return, after offering the Eid prayer, through a way different from that by which he went. Hadith 36. Narrated Urwa on the authority of Aisha, on the days of Mina, 11th, 12th, and 13th of Dhul-Hijjah, Abu Bakr came to her while 2 young girls were beating the tambourine, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was lying covered with his clothes. Abu Bakr scolded them, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, uncovered his face and said to Abu Bakr, leave them, for these days are the days of Eid and the days of Mina. Aisha further said, once the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was screening me and I was watching the display of black slaves in the mosque and, Umar, scolded them. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, leave them. O Bani Arfidah! Carry on, you are safe, protected. Hadith 37. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, went out and offered a 2 rakat prayer on the day of Eid-al-Fitr, and did not offer any other prayer before or after it, and at that time Bilal was accompanying him.